Good? All right. Okay, so the focus of my research has been the field of impact investment. Before I get into the meat of the discussion, I think it's important to clarify and make a note of the type of information that I'm receiving and the type of information that's in this project. I initially came into contact with impact investment through a research produced by the Research Institute of Credit Suisse. And so I initially wanted to take this project from a view of being primarily a view from the private sector's perspective. But I don't know if I have time for this, but basically I attempted to get in contact with Credit Suisse. I looked on their website. They don't really release any emails of their personnel or their employees on their website, so I tried to get in contact with the generic information website the information they provide of the public sector. So it's a little bit complicated, and the majority of this information comes from the United Nations. So moving forward. So the story, a lot of this deals with sustainable development. And so the story of in which development kind of takes a priority as they're discussing the role of communism and capitalism and the debate between that. So development during the post-World War II era, the Cold War era, really became about economics. It was about economic indicators, it was about GDP, it was about per capita income. Development was about economics and which method, which economic system was most beneficial to the world. So you have the development movement going on. You also have the sustainability movement occurring. And the sustainability movement really derived from the environmental movement. There's a lot of work, concerning obviously the environment. But sustainability tried to develop the sustainability movement into something that not only considered the environment, but also considered society. So you've got the development movement, you have the sustainability movement, and you have the so environment and society on one side, and the economy on the other. And so ultimately, what transpired from here was a collision of these two movements. And it was really not until the late 80s or early 90s that these two movements really had started to fuse together and become one. And what transpired and what came out of this was the sustainable development movement. So the sustainable development movement, again, like I said, it really hit the international community as an international concern for policymakers in the 1990s, primarily 1992 when the United Nations hosted the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Sustainable development was the primary focus of those discussions. It was, out of that there were a bunch of different documents that came out, the Rio Declaration, and ever since then they've had progressive meetings to try to discuss the role of the international community in sustainable development. So sustainable development, as we've learned throughout the semester, is the triple bottom line, which is the environment, society, and economics. So sustainable development places an equal importance upon all three factors. All three sectors, all three pillars are viewed to be equal. This was kind of the initial view of the sustainable development movement. You have these three intersecting sectors that overlap and collide together. But really what's transpired in the past even couple of years has been a shift from this diagram to this diagram, in which we see the economy, society, and environment as being all-inclusive, because society is within the environment and the economy is within society. We don't have an economy that's outside of society. So really these are all factors that are central to each other. At the very root of it, we're seeing the economy. Now that's not to say that the sustainable development movement places a priority on the economy, but you have to understand that these are all three interconnected, interchangeable in financial returns. Or it can be on the other side of this and be much more about the business and placing social and environmental concerns at not necessarily a minimal amount, but taking less precedence and trying to balance equally business and impact. So you can see that the continuum is very important to understanding this because, again, within impact investment, it's a broad spectrum that you can see a variety of opportunities, a variety of abilities to invest and impact at different levels. So just keep this image or this figure in your mind as we kind of continue, because it's important to understand the spectrum and the continuum. Okay, models. So as you can see, this is basically what I was explaining. Again, you have the core of business at the very center of this field, and then the main components are that you're investing. These investments are long-term investments. These are not short-term investments. So the point of impact investment is trying to balance long-term commitments, financial commitments, with short-term profits. Because obviously a business, when it comes down to it, is trying to generate profits. So how do you manage the desire of your shareholders for immediate profits and the desire to attain long-term benefits for this? So the main key part of this movement is collaboration. As you can see, the business of business is business. And so obviously businesses want to make a return. They want to be financially profitable. And the business model, what businesses are, as you can see, it's an engine of growth and development. Businesses bring a streamlined effectiveness to development projects. The businesses are able to manage resources and able to understand, within the economic theory, it's trying to use limited resources to meet unlimited demands. And so the businesses are very good at that. And that's an important quality that businesses can bring, and the private sector can bring to these development projects. It's a structure, it's a streamlined efficiency. It's a commitment to the business model and the effectiveness that capitalism and business can provide. And the public sector. Primarily I looked at the United Nations within this. And the important part of that is that there's a global platform for a lot of these organizations. The United Nations is well known, its outreach is extensive, and the network that is required to invest in these development projects is present within the public sector. They provide credibility and legitimacy, and the most important part is they provide on-the-ground networks. They have people there on the ground that are communicating with the locals, that understand the needs and the desires of the locals, not just the needs and the desires of the private sector, but what projects are needed in the specific region, how it can be effectively implemented, and how the private sector fits into the agenda of the developing world, not the other way around. Projects and documents, actually, that are experiencing collaboration. The Millennium Development Goals was created by the United Nations, and so now, but the point, they refocused and reframed to try to include the private sector. They always wanted the private sector there, but the private sector never really took initial involvement. And so they really are trying now to get the private sector to become involved so that they can achieve these goals. And the United Nations Global Compact and Business Call to Action, those are both documents which have been released by the United Nations, which ultimately are challenging businesses to get involved, to be ethical, to make investments in the developing world, to use their skills and qualities and abilities to better and impact the developing world of human rights. Protection of labor, protection of the environment, and the elimination of corruption. Government can provide the right incentives and benchmarks. It is up to the individual companies to go further in ways specific to their own abilities and expertise. So you can see it's the creating the enable environment for business, and then business can come in and really motivate and really take that to the next level. Metrics, we'll get through here pretty quickly. So the Global Impact Investment Network is one of the leading producers of investment metrics, impact investment metrics. Their system is called the Impact Reporting and Investment Standards, or IRIS. The challenge within the metrics is that they're attempting to measure not only financial returns, but also the social and environmental impact. So how do you go about measuring an arbitrary thing like social impact? How do you measure that? And that's one of the main problems within this. There's a lot of skepticism, a lot of mixed messages within this about where do we draw the line between using the metrics as a useful tool for businesses to understand the complexities that are within development projects, and where do we just need to start committing ourselves to action they're looking to succeed in. So collaboration is very key. Balance is another key part. Balancing from the public sector, their financiers with their intended projects, from the private sector balancing long-term profits or long-term results with short-term profits, which is ultimately the core of business. There also needs to be a commitment by business. The government must be proactive in ensuring that the businesses don't get carried away. They are businesses, after all. They're looking to make a profit. That's not to say that all businesses are unethical, but it's to say that there does need to be a consideration for the role of business and the role of government, and where that line is drawn between purely business and purely philanthropy. Again, the continuum, finding the middle ground. There also needs to be a lot of innovation. This is a very developing and new field, and it needs a lot of time to progress and to figure out the right combination. It's young, the metrics are still questioned, uncertain, and there's still a lot to go before this will be a legitimate and widely accepted and successful movement. But ultimately, the main goal of this movement is to move business beyond profits. Business needs to take more of a role in the world, not just corporate social responsibility, because that's not enough. It needs to play an active role. It needs to be an active participant, because it's necessary for the development of the world and for the success of this movement.